On today's show, Greg Swartz from Bleacher Report stops by. We talk about Evan Mobley. We talk a little bit about Lonzo Ball, some of our most interesting players for the Cavs this year. Plus, what should the starting lineup be when the Cavs hit the court next month against the New York Knicks? We talk about all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham, and you might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92 Through the Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. And I just want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're with us on YouTube as we get started here, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy to be joined by Greg Swartz on today's show. Greg, of course, has been on the show before plenty of times, but wanted to bring him back, have a conversation about the Cavs, but more specifically, Evan Mobley before the season gets started. I do want to give a quick heads up. We did record this conversation on Monday night, so we don't have knowledge as we're talking here of what Kenny Atkinson and Kobe Altman had to say on Tuesday at their joint press conference, but a lot of what they said was sort of expected. We talk about Evan Mobley. We talk a little bit about Darius Garland. We talk about Lonzo Ball. Sam Merrill comes up in conversation. We really get into a lot. So without anything else, here is my conversation with Greg Swartz. Thrilled to be joined, as always, by Greg Swartz of Bleacher Report. Caught up after the Cavs lost in the playoffs to the Pacers. Wanted to get with you again, get your thoughts on a lot of things going into the season, because Media Day is Monday of next week. We have already obviously heard from Kobe Altman and Kenny Atkinson, although we are recording this before we actually hear from them, so we don't know what they said as of right now. But Greg, wanted to talk a lot today about Evan Mobley. Want to talk about the starting lineup, guys that interest us, but I think Evan's a great place to start because he's the guy that I look at right now as maybe the most pivotal player on the Cavs, because I think it's fair to say, know what to expect from Donovan Mitchell, and maybe Darius Garland's a bit of a question mark because of his injury. But last year we saw Evan take a pretty big step forward, dare I say, a leap offensively. And I don't know if there's another leap in there per se, but I do think there's at least another big step forward. And I think just how big that step forward is could be one of the season defining things for the Cavs.
Yeah, I don't think Evan Mobley is going to be the best player on the Cavs this year. I think Donovan Mitchell is still going to take that reign, but I think Evan Mobley is probably the most important player on the Cavs moving forward, just because he's the guy that is going to raise this team's ceiling. He's the one that, if you fall short in the playoffs like you did last year, he's the one that you can point to and say, he's still growing. He's still getting better. Even if Donovan Mitchell is at his peak right now, and even if Darius Garland only gets a little bit better throughout his career, Evan's the guy that gives this franchise hope. That's when, earlier in the offseason, maybe you heard, some Cavs fans go, well, maybe we should trade Evan for Giannis and stuff. And, maybe that improves your short term, but I just think Evan he's so important to the present and the future of this team, especially now you've got him on that 5-year extension. Like I said, I don't think he's the best player on the team, but I think he's the most important player for the Cleveland Cavaliers moving forward.
That's one of the things I brought up on Monday's show, because on Monday I spent basically the entire show focusing on what to expect from Donovan Mitchell. And one of the reasons why I think this is a big season for Donovan individually is because I agree with you. I think that Donovan is still the best player on the Cavs going into this season. And I'm at the point where I expect him to, at the end of this season, still be the best player on the Cavs. But I'm also at the point where I think 12 months from now, you and I can be having the same conversation on this very same date, and we should be talking about Evan Mobley being the best player on the Cavs. So at what point, essentially, I'm curious where you're at on this, but what point do you think that flips? Do you see that as something that could happen this season, Greg?
I'd be surprised if it happened this season. I think we're still a year away. I think just Donovan right now, just being at the peak of his powers, he's taking that step every year. Age-wise, he's in the prime of his career, 29. That's typically we see, guys at his position, 27, 28, 29, be at their best. So I think we got one more year Donovan. But, I still go back to media day of 2022, and all the buzz was about Donovan Mitchell, and he was brand new to the team, and everybody was excited about him. And still, when you had, JB at the time and Kobe up there, they used the word superstar to describe one player on the team, and it wasn't Donovan Mitchell. It was Evan Mobley. And they said, we think this guy's going to be a superstar. And at the time, offensively, you're like, wow, this guy's got a long way to go. Defensively, obviously, he's pretty good. But I just think he still has so much. He's got such a big offensive step he's got to take for me to be considered the best player that I think we're still a year away.
What do you think he needs to do to take that step? Because I look at where he was exiting the postseason and understanding that he was not completely healthy in that Pacers series after he had to miss game 2 because of an ankle sprain. But there were a number of different things that I thought, okay, this could be the thing that defines Evan Mobley's summer, or this is the thing that Evan needs to work on. And I know what my list is, and I'll share it, but I am just, from your perspective, very curious if you were Kenny Atkinson, or if you were Kobe Altman, or even Evan Mobley's offseason skills trainer, what were the areas that you look at and say, yeah, that is where Evan needs to get better this summer?
Well, I think it's a combination of just his growing skill set and the Cavs putting him in the right position to succeed and actually going to him more and giving him the ball in key moments. I pulled up a couple numbers from last year that I thought met the eye test. If you look at Evan Mobley in the first quarter of games last year, he attempted 4 shots a game. Donovan was at 5. Darius was at 4. And I thought, okay, that's a fair number. Like, Donovan's the number 1 guy. He's not far behind. But, you kind of notice as the game went on, if you needed a bucket, if the game was on the line, you weren't running the offense through Evan Mobley. It was still going through Donovan Mitchell. And I think that's important when you look at fourth quarter numbers. Like I said, Donovan Mitchell went from 5 shots in the first quarter to 4.8 in the fourth. It was basically the same. Darius Garland was the exact same, 4.1 shots a game in the first quarter and the fourth. The big drop-off was Evan. Evan had 4 shots a game in the first quarter. In the fourth quarter, he was all the way down to 2.8. And I just think that's such a big difference. If you believe that this guy is the future of your franchise, if you believe that he has this offensive step that he's going to take, you have to, put your money where your mouth is, and you have to give him the ball more. And I feel like Donovan has spoken openly about that. And, we saw this all the time with Kevin Love. We were always like, LeBron's going to dominate the ball and Kyrie's going to dominate the ball. And we always talked about, well, we're going to run the offense through Kevin Love. And it never really happened. And I hope that the Cavs, obviously different roster, different regime, but I hope, they can kind of take those lessons and say, we got to get the big guy going first. And not only first, we got to get those fourth quarter shot numbers up too, because there's obviously room for him to grow, but it's also about opportunity and getting him the ball in those key offensive moments when he really hasn't had it.
So I think that's a great comparison. And I had forgotten about that with Kevin and Kyrie and LeBron and that iteration of the Cavs, but that was absolutely a thing that happened. And I do think that is a little bit of a fear, but I also can look at it and say, well, Kevin very clearly was the third best player on that team. Like, sure, there was not, obviously nobody, and nobody in Cavs history has been above LeBron James, and in all likelihood, nobody ever will be above LeBron James as far as that goes. And Kyrie Irving in his own right was a star, borderline superstar caliber guard. And I think that the arrow for him was certainly at that point in his career still pointing up in a way that I don't think it was for Kevin Love. So I do look at that and say, yeah, it was a little bit more of an awkward fit. And the other side of things that I look at and say, it can be hard when that guy is not a perimeter type player, when that guy is not somebody that can go create not only for others, but create for himself, because it's easier to get your own shot off, right? Like in the fourth quarter of game, when things do tighten up, it can be so much easier. Not saying it's the best thing to do, because I don't believe that it is, but it can be easy to fall back into a tendency if you're Donovan Mitchell's like, hey, I can take this guy off the dribble. And Darius Garland can do the same thing. And Darius Garland, I thought in the fourth quarters last year, was very successful and very impressive in doing just that. It's a little bit more difficult for Evan. And that's kind of why, Greg, I get to the point where the thing that I think was most important, or should have been most important this summer, and I will be very interested to hear from Evan on Monday at Media Day, but tightening up his handle and becoming a more efficient dribbler is one of the things that I look at and just say, if he does that, Like, he doesn't need to become this all-world three-point shooter. I think he's in a good, healthy place as far as that goes right now, at least what we saw from December on last year. But if he can become somebody that can get to the basket on his own a little bit easier, or, when he gets the ball in the mid-post, it takes one, maybe two fewer dribbles to get to the basket. I think that is an area where there's no way to, there are ways to quantify it. Like, if you have some tracking data, it's going to be more of an eye test thing, I think, for the common fan to see. It's just like, okay, yeah, Evan looks so much more fluid with the basketball in his hands. He doesn't need to always catch the ball moving towards the basket to be successful. And I just say, if that is the thing that gets fixed, not even fixed, but gets improved during this offseason, Evan's going to be a much better player on the offensive end of the floor this year.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Handle's definitely at the top of the list. And I think he's gotten better. He's got a lot better at that as he's, progressed throughout his career, but it's definitely something that needs tightened up. He's never going to be like, a phenomenal ball handler or dribbler, but just for someone his size to just have that in his bag, I think is important. One thing I thought he made a big leap in last year, and it could still grow in, is just his overall shooting confidence. I feel like there's still hesitation a lot of times when he gets the ball and he has an open three-pointer, because he was pretty rough when he started off his career. But last year, he like tripled his attempts per game, 37% from three. He looked a lot more confident, but if he gets 5 open looks in the first quarter from three, I want him shooting all 5. I don't care. Let's get him up. I would just want him to build up that confidence, because he still is so young. I think there's still a little bit of hesitation when you watch him going, I have all these great players around me. I have Donovan Mitchell, I have Darius Garland, I have Max Strus, I have all these great players. I think he needs to just become a little bit more selfish, a little bit more of an a-hole, and be like, no, I'm going to shoot this. I don't care what anyone else thinks right now. So I think part of it is the skill set needs to improve. Like you said, with the handles, the opportunity needs to improve. And I think the attitude, and I don't want to, he's a great guy. Like, he's a phenomenal guy. I don't want to take away from his personality, but I think just if he got a little bit more of an edge, if he just got a little bit more of an anger element in his game, a little bit of a selfish element, I think that would actually benefit him long-term for his offense.
But first, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer, because right now, new customers on FanDuel can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. We've got Thursday night football tonight. We've got football on Sunday, and the Cleveland Browns found a way to get a win last week, but they're heavy underdogs yet again. Last week, they were the second heaviest underdog in the entire NFL. This week, they're the second heaviest underdog again in the NFL, and the spread has grown. The Browns are getting 9.5 points on the road against the Detroit Lions. I know the Browns just beat the Packers, but could the Lions, coming off a win over the Baltimore Ravens, be overlooking the Browns? Maybe it could be possible. Maybe that 9.5 points that the Browns are getting is worth it on the spread. Whether it's a spread, a money line, a player prop, whatever it is, FanDuel has you covered. And right now, like I said, if you're new to FanDuel, bet $5. If that first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com today to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. FanDuel, play your game. I certainly could see how that could have an impact there. And the one thing that I do wonder, and we don't have, at least as of the time of recording, maybe I believe this will be something that gets asked of Kenny Atkinson and Kobe Altman on Tuesday when the media meets with them. But if Darius Garland is out for some portion to begin the season, whether he's back a week in, 2 weeks in, a month in, or maybe he does start opening night, I wouldn't necessarily expect that. But I do wonder if having Darius out could be a good thing for Evan's growth. It's not a good thing for the Cavs long-term. Like, they cannot win the title this year without Darius Garland. He is needed as far as that goes. But I do wonder if that is a way for sort of that natural pecking order to take place, because I think if Darius is there from the start, maybe it's a little bit more difficult for Evan to get those shots. But if Evan is getting those shots from the beginning of the season, if his usage is a little bit higher, then I do think, okay, it might be easier to slide Darius Garland into that third creator or third scorer type role in that starting unit, as opposed to Evan needing to sort of earn it with him there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think ideally, if you looked at, the end of the season stats next year, I think your mark of a good season would be Donovan would probably still be the leading scorer, and Evan would be second, and Darius would be third. I think if you're going to hit your peak, that's probably what it needs to be. I say that, but Darius is a phenomenal scorer. I don't want him shooting the ball less, certainly. Like, he's really good. He's shoots with great efficiency, but I think ideally, yeah, saw Evan make the jump up to over 18 points a game. I think definitely should be over 20 a game this year. I think that's the next step for him, especially like you said, the opportunities are going to be there. If Darius isn't there to begin the year, Max Strus not going to be there to begin the year. Someone's got to take those shots. Obviously, I think DeAndre Hunter is going to step up, a guy that they didn't have at the beginning of the season last year, and Ty Jerome not being there either. I mean, that's a lot of shots that are coming too, especially if Lonzo Ball is not available every single night. So again, I don't want to bring up, a decade ago, but we kind of saw the same thing when the Cavs traded Kyrie Irving, and they had to begin the season with Isaiah Thomas was hurt in 2018. And it was kind of like the natural pecking order. We still had LeBron, but Kevin Love all of a sudden was his numbers were a lot better when Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade and Jay Crowder were around him and no Kyrie. So I think the natural pecking order, like you said, is going to play out. And this is a chance for Evan to really start off the season with some impressive scoring numbers.
Now, you said you need to see Evan be second on the Cavs in points per game, which I agree with. Do you think he needs to be second on the Cavs in field goal attempts per game? Because last year, the disparity between Darius and Evan in field goal attempts was bigger than in points per game. Darius scored 20.6 points per game versus 18.5 for Evan. Darius took 15.7 shots compared to 12.8. So like there was a bigger difference there. Do you think that needs to change?
Not necessarily. Because obviously the type of shots that Evan is getting is not the same as Darius, obviously being more of an interior game and a perimeter game for Darius. So I don't think that's necessarily the difference, but I would certainly like to see the arrow for Evan's shot attempts to go up. And if that means Darius's have to come down a little bit, then I think overall that's going to be what's best for the team.
So the other thing, or one of the other things, I guess I should say, that I wanted to talk about with you today was the players that we're most interested in this year. And Evan Mobley is ruled out of this discussion. We just spent 15 minutes talking about him. Although I think we probably both agree, very interesting what he's going to look like. But this is more geared towards somebody else that's not the budding franchise star. So who is the player that you, Greg Swartz, are most interested in seeing this year for the Cavs?
This is a deep cut, but I think this guy could be a real contributor and rotation player, or I could see him just hanging out on the bench and not being in the rotation at all. That's Jaylon Tyson. I think Jaylon Tyson is one of the most intriguing players for me this year because obviously they took him out of college in the first round summer ago. He was a first round pick, 20th overall. I thought maybe he could see some minutes right away. And I always thought that the plan for him, didn't get this on record from anybody, but you looked at the books, you saw that Karis LeVert was on an expiring contract, and you thought probably not going to be able to re-sign him, right? Second apron. They ended up flipping him. The opportunity is there for Jaylon Tyson. No Darius Garland to begin the season. No Max Strus to begin the season. No Ty Jerome. Karis LeVert's been long gone. The opportunity is there. If Jaylon Tyson is going to be a rotation player for this team, this is probably his best chance to make an impact is right away when you have some of these guards and these wings out. So I just think that he's shown me enough in summer league and a little bit of playing time last year. Obviously he didn't play a lot. He's pretty versatile. Summer league this year, I know you probably saw him in person. I did not, but the shooting efficiency wasn't great, but 20 points per game, 6 rebounds, almost 7 assists, a block, a steal. I mean, he can just fill in so many different areas that, and we saw that at Cal, his junior year, that he can play on ball. He can play off ball. He can do a little bit of whatever you need him to do. And I think he's hungry. I mean, he was the one that was jumping around from college to college because he wasn't getting the playing time that he felt he deserved. And I assume, I didn't talk to him, but I assume he was probably desperate for more playing time last year. He was probably not enjoying himself being on the bench. So this is his time. that he can make a big impact, especially when you have some guards and some wings out. And I just think he's a guy that, boy, if he hits, if he clicks, and he is a guy that can give you real rotation minutes off the bench for a team that is, way above the second apron and needs cheap talent, only on the second year of his rookie deal. I think Jaylon Tyson is extremely interesting for the Cavs this year.
The conversation with Greg will continue in just a second, but first, today's show brought to you by Skims. When I found out that Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I was curious. I didn't know what to necessarily expect. I know it's a top of the line product. I didn't know that they were making anything for men. I heard so much about the quality of what was going on the women's side, but underwear for men, my interest was piqued. So I gave it a try, and I have to tell you, I never want to go back. Skims for men is the best underwear that I've ever worn. I've worn a lot of different brands. I stick to the same style for the most part, but I've worn a lot of different brands that have had multiple different materials throughout the course of my adult life. And I have to tell you that nobody does it better than Skims for men. It's the best fit, it's the most comfortable, and it's the right style. It's everything that you could want in underwear. Skims has it. Their men's line offers something for everyone too. Maybe your boxers, maybe your boxer briefs, maybe your classic briefs. I don't know what you're into, but Skims has it all. And it's all designed for the perfect balance of comfort and style. I'm hooked on Skims. Like I've told you guys before, it is actually the best underwear that I've ever worn. They're perfect for an active lifestyle, like one that I try and live. They never lose their shape, which is a really important thing. Like you think of underwear that kind of bunches up on the hips at times, that would drive me nuts in the past. That never ever happens with Skims. It stays in place all day, whether you're working out, just running errands, doing whatever you got to do. Skims is the most comfortable and reliable underwear that you will ever own. Plus the lightweight material does feel amazing. It's really top of the line stuff. So what you need to do, if you want to love your underwear as much as I love mine, shop Skims Men's at skims.com. That is skims.com, and let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select this show in the drop-down menu that follows. Again, if you want your underwear to be as great as my underwear is, head on over to skims.com. That is skims.com. As somebody who has talked to him about this, like I do know that last year was not the easiest thing in the world for him, because when you are a first round pick in, any sport, you have been, for the most part, the best player on whatever team you've been your entire life. And you have always been somebody that has gotten a lot of opportunities and had the basketball in your hands and been on that stage before. So I do think it was a difficult thing for him last year to come in, for all intents and purposes, not play very many meaningful minutes. Like he got a spot start here or there. But he was, when the Cavs were fully healthy, he was not a rotation player. And I think he's going to have a big opportunity at the start of this year. I'm not advocating for him to be in the starting lineup in place of Max Strus, and I think that's a little bit of a different conversation. But I do think he can replace a lot of the things that Max Strus can do. Now, Strus is a movement shooter in a way that Jaylon Tyson is not, and I do not think ever will be. But Strus is a good connector, and we hear Kenny Atkinson call him that all the time. And I think Jaylon Tyson, you referenced the assist numbers that he had in summer league, and I think that's a little bit different because he was playing with the ball in his hands so much more frequently. But I do think that he has a little bit of that connector to him. And one of the other things that he does is he is a very good rebounder on the wing. And that is an area where the Cavs are searching. Max Strus is okay at it. DeAndre Hunter is not a very good rebounder for his position. They've not had a good wing rebounder in a long time, it feels like. So that is an area where I do think he can make an impact there. I am very interested to see what the shooting looks like. Like that is the question I have about him, is does he have enough right there to make sure that he can be a quality rotation NBA player? But you're right about needing to hit on him, because when you are in the financial situation that the Cavs are in, you need to win on margins. Because you're paying Evan Mobley so much money, you're paying Donovan Mitchell so much money, Darius Garland so much money. Jarrett Allen is on a very reasonable contract right now, but after this year, he's getting paid a lot of money because it jumps from 20 to 28. You need to find ways to win when you do have a first-round draft pick, the way the Cavs did with Tyson. You need to hit on a second-round pick now and then, like they hope that they do with Tyrese Proctor. You need an undrafted free agent signing to work out for you the way that Craig Porter Jr. can, or the way that Dean Wade seemingly has. And a win like Sam Merrill, and Sam is not in this category anymore because he's on a very legitimate NBA contract now, but when he was on the contract that he's been on for the past couple of years, like that is by NBA standards, very good cheap labor. And a first round pick on a rookie contract is good cheap labor in the NBA. So I agree with you. The Cavs need Tyson to be in the rotation this year for their long-term future. And I think the best thing that he can do is take advantage of the opportunity that I do think he will get with Max Strus unavailable to start the season. And then when Max comes back, Kenny Atkinson needs to say, well, I have to have Jaylon Tyson in the rotation. Like that is a thing that I need to have because he's been so good in these first 2 months of the season.
Absolutely. And this, I mean, like I said, the time is now. If he can't make this rotation at the beginning of the year with all these bodies out, I don't think he's going to. But hopefully a year on the bench, some G League experience, some summer, a couple back-to-back pretty good showings at Summer League. Yeah. I think this is the time for him because if it doesn't hit now, I don't think it's going to hit at all.
And the guy that I picked for this was Lonzo Ball. And I've talked about Lonzo a lot on this podcast over the course of this summer, because I think that what he does is really good. I think he's a very, very good role player, but I think the way that he transforms the way the Cavs can look might be a little bit more important than any of the individual skills that he has. And what I mean by that is last year, I think one of the flaws with the Cavs, and this is very much like the NBA version of a first world problem, but I thought they played Sam Merrill at small forward way too much. Now they were plus 12 per 100 possessions when Sam Merrill played small forward, but they were plus 16 when he played shooting guard. Or if you combine it, they were also plus 26 when he played small forward and Karis LeVert was at shooting guard. So I think that he can make those lineups with Sam work a little bit better. I think because he's a good rebounder, maybe you can get away playing DeAndre Hunter at the 4 a little bit more with Lonzo Ball on the floor. So I look at that and say, okay, it's not necessarily about who Lonzo is. And I like Lonzo as a basketball player. I think he's a very, very good fit. But I think the impact that he is going to have is going to change the way that other guys fit. And I think that is going to be the best thing for the Cavs this year.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about Jaylon Tyson having a wide variety of outcomes. I mean, Lonzo Ball might have the widest variety of outcomes when you factor in. I mean, I'm just thinking back to, early Chicago, just how good he looked. And I wasn't a huge fan of his coming in the NBA, but he really impressed me. The shooting improvements that he made, the size, the rebounding, the defense, able to push the ball in transition. He's just a really smart basketball player, and he just makes everyone around him better. And then you look at how much time he's missed the last 3 years, and it just scares you. Is he going to be able to play back-to-backs? Is he going to be able to play 20 plus minutes a night? We don't know. We don't know how that knee's going to hold up, but the idea of him is just so tantalizing. I think he's a big upgrade over Ty Jerome if he's healthy, just because of the defense, because of the size, because of the rebounding. Boy, if he hits, I mean, he just makes this second unit just one of the best in the NBA along with DeAndre Hunter. I really feel that way. So yeah, that's a great pick by you.
Do you think that he should start if Darius Garland's not available to start the season? What do you think that, let's just dive into this. Like, what do you think the Cavs starting lineup should be at the beginning of the season? We know Strus is not going to be available, and let's do this exercise under the assumption Darius Garland won't be too.
Yeah. It scares me to start Lonzo just because let's say he can't play back-to-backs to start right away. I want some continuity in the starting lineup. I don't want to be, he starts one night, now we go back to this guy, now we go back. So I would rather bring Lonzo off the bench. I'd rather keep his minutes low. And if that means Donovan playing point guard for, a little bit, I'm okay with that because if you have, depending on who else you have in the starting lineup, you might have some more ball handling. I'm not a big fan of Jaylon Tyson in the starting lineup either. I'd probably bring him off the bench. I think Sam Merrill's probably going to be one of those starters that you can plug in. He's got starting experience. DeAndre Hunter's the one that's interesting because the numbers with him in the starting five with the core 4 last year, I think the Cavs were plus 28 for a net rating. It was a limited number, but they had a very good net rating with him in the core 4. But if you put him in the starting lineup, that's a big score off the bench that you're missing. So if Lonzo, I think Lonzo I'd keep as the backup point guard. And I'd keep Donovan at the 1 for now until you get Darius back and just try to keep a consistent starting lineup until you get Max and Darius to return.
I can tell you those DeAndre Hunter numbers because I wrote about them for my Substack earlier this week. But according to Cleaning the Glass, Hunter played small forward for 385 possessions, which is where he slides in that lineup with the core four. And that was the Cavs had a much better net rating there. They were plus 12.5 per 100 possessions with him playing small forward, as opposed to him being the power forward coming off the bench. He only started one game alongside the core four. It was the very first game he played with the Cavs against the Timberwolves. And if you think back, that was when they held the Wolves scoreless for like the first 7 minutes of the game. I think it was just something absurd. But that lineup, Hunter plus the core four, only played 95 minutes together during the regular season across 27 games. And they only played 6 minutes together in the postseason. Yeah. So while we think that lineup is really good, and I think that lineup is really good, and I think that it should be when Darius Garland gets back, should be the starting five, one until Strus gets back, and two permanently, provided that it goes well. I also think the Cavs did not have their five best players on the floor frequently enough last year.
No.
95 minutes, because those are their five best players.
Yeah.
95 minutes is not a big enough sample size for your five best players to be together, even if there was, a big trade. Like, it's not as if those five best players were all together at the start of the season, but I think that is an area where Kenny Atkinson can be better in building rotations.
Yeah. 73 total possessions, scoring and cleaning the glass, plus 28.8 net rating. Like, very small sample size. Like, don't want to make a whole lot out of that, but that number just pops, man. That's a really good offense and a really good defense. Obviously, the size on the wing goes up quite a bit. If you're swapping out Max Strus for DeAndre Hunter, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league after he came to Cleveland last year. I mean, he's a guy that he doesn't do much other than scoring. But if he's starting at small forward for them, you don't need him to do a whole lot either, because he's got good size. He's a good defender. And if he's knocking down 40% of his threes, that's about all you need out of that starting three.
The one concern that I think I would have is exactly what you mentioned. He doesn't do much other than scoring offensively. Yeah. He's not a great playmaker. He's not, I don't know if he doesn't have great passing vision or what, but it just seems oftentimes the ball can get a little sticky when he's out there. And I think if Darius is healthy, you've got plenty of playmaking between him and Donovan and Evan. Like, there's enough there that you can have a player that maybe gets a little sticky. But with Darius not available, that's where I think it gets tricky, because I don't think that the Cavs should want to put too much on Donovan Mitchell's plate, particularly in October and November. And I think you're then asking Evan Mobley to do a lot of playmaking. And maybe this is similar to the conversation piece that we made about if Darius is not there, like, it's more opportunity for Evan scoring. I think it's also more opportunity for him to grow as a playmaker too. Sure. I think that could be one of the undervalued things that we look at.
Yeah. And the nice thing, if there's a silver lining to the injuries that we've seen for Darius and Max, they didn't sneak up on us. It's not like, we got news today of Fred VanVleet tore his ACL.
Yeah, it's
so
tough.
Yeah. And you're like, a week away from training camp beginning. All of a sudden that whole coaching staff in Houston has to go through and be like, okay, what are we doing now? Like I said, the only silver lining for the Cavs is that they've known about this for a while. Kenny has, he doesn't have his Olympic responsibilities like he had last summer. He's got a little bit more time. He's prepared for this. I mean, you could say there's certainly criticisms of Kenny Atkinson. His preparation is not one of them. He knows what he's doing. So, they didn't win 64 games last year because they weren't prepared. So because of the injuries happened when they did, I think he's going to have a plan for all this. If it means more playmaking from Evan Mobley, if it needs more scoring for Evan Mobley, let's do it. Let's bring it on now. Let's play with these in October and November and December. So, we have them in our back pocket for April and May and June. I think that's a good problem to have.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think it'll be something that very much helps this team grow throughout the season. Well, Greg, very much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you a ton for joining. What do you got coming down at Bleacher Report soon?
Not a lot. It is September, my man. We ain't got a lot going on right now. it's a lot of the same old, man. I'm waiting for the season to start. I'm waiting for new stuff to happen. I'm actually, very much looking forward to actually watching real basketball games and not looking up the same stats over and over and over again for the past
They don't
couple
change.
months. So
they don't change. I've been to the Cavs cleaning the
no.
glass page about 1,000 times over the past 6 weeks, and the numbers don't change at all. They're the same.
No, so I'm just ready for the season to start. Then we'll have some fresh stuff coming out.
Well, I appreciate the time, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Very much appreciate Greg Swartz stopping by for today's episode. We are getting closer and closer to Cavs basketball. Media Day is on Monday. Tomorrow, as a reminder, is a mailbag episode. I will be recording that episode sometime Thursday afternoon. So if you've got questions, drop them in the comments here, send them my way on social media, or as always, you can email the show at locavsmailbag@gmail.com. That is LOCAVS mailbag@gmail.com if you want to get questions in for the Friday Locked On Cavs mailbag. And then after that, we are into the season. Media Day is Monday, training camp starts on Tuesday, and away we go. So thank you for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, and thank you for making it your first listen every single day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube as we get out of here, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.